Hello, thank you for joining our Wednesday webinar where today we'll be focusing on holiday scams and how you can avoid them. If you've joined us for any of our Wednesday webinars, you know that we do these every week and we try to offer you a lot of free information, tips, things you can do to prevent identity theft and scams. So we'll kind of be getting into a lot of the ways that scammers are targeting folks right now. Some of these things are, text messages and things I've even received during this last couple of days. So we'll be going over a lot of what you might be seeing out there and the different ways scammers are trying to get your money and information. So now we kind of want to get into the main topic of our presentation. Of course, that's holiday scams, and we kind of want to be able to help you defend against a variety of things that scammers use to target folks. So as you can imagine, there's a big wide variety of these. Some of these we will get into in the presentation. Some of them we just kind of glance over, but I want you to just kind of think about the different types of things that are out there. If there are holiday job scams, travel scams that you might be getting in emails or maybe text messages about. Sometimes there are even robocalls that will be those travel scam messages. Just kind of the list of all these things just goes on and on and on, like we say there at the bottom of the screen. But we just want to give you a few things that you can watch out for and give you some of those red flags of what to consider before you start giving your money or information over to folks. And of course, our number one rule, if you've been on our webinar ever before, you know this rule that we've talked about it all the time. Do not give any of your personal or financial information to someone you don't know. So if you can't verify that they're actually who they say they are or that they're the company that they're pretending to be, you don't want to give them that information and that money. And that just kind of makes sense. But we know scammers use a lot of tools to try to, pretend to be somebody else. So we'll kind of get into a lot of that as we get going. So when it comes to holidays and kind of really year round, online shopping is kind of one of those scams that are out there. And I say that because purchase scams are typically the number one scam that's reported to our office. And a lot of that's just because websites are easy to kind of fake and create. They can make very professional looking websites. And a lot of times scammers will even run fake advertisement, especially on social media. So a lot of those advertisements that you might see, they look good, they sound good, they're promising great deals, but when you click on those links, they'll go to a scammy website or something where they're trying to get all those financial records from you. So they're trying to get you to enter their credit or your credit card number on their site and those types of things. So you really want to kind of think about those advertisements you're seeing, especially on social media. And, I say a lot of times those prices that are too good to be true, that's kind of that big warning sign that you want to watch out for, especially on those advertisements that are showing up online. And really, if you don't know those companies that you're seeing those advertisements for, really take a good look at them and kind of think about why you're clicking those links before you start clicking on those. And kind of one of my quick examples of that, this one's a little dated, but this is one that we've seen before. It's that ad promising the dirt cheap PlayStation 5. You've probably seen something similar to this, even if it's, not a PlayStation 5. We also see these types of things with like furniture or with clothing, especially high-end clothing. You'll see these kind of ads pop up or these advertisements on different marketplaces and things. And just that price is just going to be astronomically lower than what most retailers are offering. So if you kind of know what the general price range of that something is, even if it's on sale, and those prices are dramatically lower, that's kind of the thing to watch out for. And some of our safe shopping tips we'll discuss here. We just kind of want you to think about those sites again. You want to stick to trusted, well-established websites. I was telling people the other day at one of the presentations, like if it's not a website that you're using year round, you probably don't want to go to it right now. So you want to stick to those sites that you've used a dozen times probably. So really just kind of think about sticking to those things that you've probably already comfortable with and you've been using, regularly. But you also want to look at those policies that are listed for those websites, so know what's going to happen if there's a problem. You want to know their refund policies, especially this time of year if you're buying stuff for other people. So you want to know all those things before you click buy. And you also kind of want to look at those web addresses. You want to stick to those secure websites. What I mean by that is they're going to be encrypting your information. So if you're making those purchases, they're a little bit more protected, and kind of the main signs that you want to look for is the S after the HTTP. in the address, and you also want to look for the lock on the left side of the screen. And I've got a little quick example of what we mean by that. I know a lot of times people aren't quite sure about that, but you'll want to look for that example that you see there on the bottom. The one on the top is our example for it's not secure. So again, you'll want to look to see if it has that HTTPS, and it usually has some kind of lock symbol beside it too there as well. So those are going to be those two big signs that you look for, and that will just help your information be protected a little bit more as you shop. And again, you always want to consider your payment options. Kind of one of the big things that I tell people whenever I go out is really you want to use those credit cards, especially for online purchases. And kind of the reason for that is they're going to give you a little bit more protections than your debit card if something goes wrong. And we know that those debit cards are going to be kind of those direct ties into your checking accounts and things like that. So if something happens and that money is withdrawn from that account, even if you're going to get refunded back by your bank, that could still pose some issues for you that you can avoid. So if you're waiting on, car payments to go through or your mortgage payment, I know a lot of times those accounts are tied into like your electric bills, things like that. So if somebody's able to wipe out those accounts, that's going to create problems for all those other things too. So it might, create those payments that don't go through on your car or whatever. So, really consider that if that information gets out there, that could be a problem for you. While you might be able to get it back in a few weeks or whatever, it could cause those problems with those things that are tied directly to those checking accounts. So you want to keep that in mind. And again, those credit cards are going to provide you a little bit more protection if something goes wrong. So that's kind of why we recommend using those for those online purchases. And you can also check with your bank to see if they have any virtual card numbers or some options like that. Sometimes in their apps, they'll do something like that where, it's basically one-time use numbers that are associated with your card. So once you use that, those numbers are gone and somebody can't use those again. But you also might want to consider things like Apple Pay, Google Play, things like that. And kind of the reasoning for that is it's all encrypted information. It's probably connected to a two-factor authentication, something like that. And you're just not entering that information over and over and over again. It's kind of that one time entered, and it's protected that way, so you're not entering those numbers multiple times on different websites, things like that. So that's just kind of one of those things that you can do or consider that might also be an additional layer of security for you. And you can always check with your bank too and see kind of what options that they have available. But again, kind of the main point for us here is don't use those debit cards when you're making those online shopping purchases. You want to stick to those credit cards and that type of thing. And I know a lot of times, a lot of us are on those payment apps, using those for a lot of our online shopping stuff, particularly, or if you're sending, money to somebody to pay for a gift or something like that, or if you're going in on a holiday exchange or meal or something with people, a lot of us are using those payment apps to send that money to your friends. But kind of the big rule with that is you just don't want to send that money to somebody that you don't know. Or again, if you don't recognize them or expect that request, you don't want to be sending those payments through those apps. And a good reminder for folks is just too, if you're getting requests, for cash from somebody and you recognize their name, that kind of stuff, but you're not really sure why they're trying to send you that money, you want to verify that with them before you do that, even if they have those descriptions in there about why they want it. Just if you're getting those kind of requests randomly, you want to have that conversation, make sure that they weren't hacked or something like that, that the request is legitimately coming from them. We always kind of tell people too, you'll want to double check all the details before you hit that accept or you hit send to send that cash away over to somebody else. So just kind of really double check all those little details before you press send, because you don't want to send your money to somebody that's not supposed to be getting it. Kind of our other set of tips for those kinds of things is, you want to use strong, unique passwords, which of course we will talk about a little bit later too, but it's kind of one of our big reminders for folks. Make sure you're using strong, unique passwords for all these types of accounts. So you don't want somebody to get one password and be able to get into everything, especially when it's tied to your finances and things like that. You'll want to use multi-factor authentication. I believe most of the big payment apps now require that. At least the last times I went through those accounts, it seemed like they all require that multi-factor authentication to be set up. But you want to do that if it's not already set up. And you also want to set them up on your bank accounts, things like that too. You want to do those before you're making any of those payments or sending any of those transactions across. And you do that just to protect yourself. So it's going to make it twice as hard for hackers to get into your accounts, even if they know the passwords. And again, you always want to look at the app's policies for these types of things, know how they're going to protect your financial information, and also know kind of how they might respond if there's a problem, either with a purchase or something like that, or if you need to do some of those refunds or get money back from a user. Just kind of know how those individual apps work and what their policies are, and even kind of what their challenges are maybe. So if you're needing to challenge a purchase that went through, how that policy works for that individual app. And kind of one of the other things that are kind of popular, not just this time of year, but all year round, are these kind of fake discounts, giveaways, and prizes. These are two examples of things that I've received. That McDonald's one on the left is one that kind of lives year round, but especially during the holidays, in my personal emails and stuff, I get a lot of messages kind of like this one here, where it's promising you can just answer a few questions, get a free Yeti backpack cooler, which they're saying, of course, pretty expensive or pretty pricey. So they're trying to get you in with that kind of promise of something quick and easy you can do to get something, big, some kind of big prize out of doing that. And so, if you're able to think about the different types of ways these things work, they might ask for, some money to be able to ship or, process that backpack cooler, something like that. So of course they want you to enter that financial information, they'll get that. Or, something like this other one on the left, they may just be looking for a lot of details about you. So they want you to go through, fill out all this information for a loyalty program, and they're going to ask for a lot of personal identifying information probably, and just, phone numbers, email addresses, that kind of stuff too, and, even your physical address in some cases. So they're just trying to get as much information about you as possible, even if it's not that financial details, which a lot of times they may even be looking, for something, like I said, they may be asking about shipping cost or something like that. Kind of once you've entered that information, they've also got it. And sometimes it's even just, a couple bucks, would be $2 or $3 at first. And then, after you've submitted that $2 or $3 payment, you might start seeing dozens of other payments start going through. And a lot of times they're very small payments too. And they're hoping you don't recognize those types of things, but just kind of keep in mind all the variety of different things that might be able to happen with those types of situations. And again, know that scammers use, fake giveaways, these types of things. If we're wanting personal financial information, and what I mean by hijack, sometimes they make ads that look pretty similar to other ads that you might see out there. So just kind of know they do that in some cases. And again, they're running these ads on social media and things like that. And kind of the big thing that we talk about in a lot of these types of cases, just don't click on all these links that are coming in, especially if they're unexpected. Some of those companies that are listed on that last slide, I've never given them my email addresses and things like that. So how would they be sending me those messages, asking for me to enter a loyalty program when they've never received that email address from me? So, anytime you're getting those unexpected messages promising some kind of prize, something like that, just kind of take a step back. And you don't want to click on those kind of links that are just kind of coming in unexpected. And one important thing, if you think these messages might actually be tied to a real prize or a real survey, something like that that's going out there, you can always go to those companies' websites or their social media accounts and kind of look up all that information yourself. Or if there's a phone number is associated with those companies, you can call them and see if those ads are real. Because if they are real, they're probably running some kind of promotion somewhere else, either on their website or their social media accounts, to let people know about it. So you kind of want to take a look at that and do your work to make sure that those things are legitimate before you start entering all your financial information and those types of things. And again, kind of our big reminder for a lot of these types of stuff is just remember, you shouldn't have to send money to be able to claim a legitimate prize, because usually, that's something that you've won. So you shouldn't have to send them your money to get something that's supposed to be free. And kind of one thing of speaking of free, of those free gift cards or some kind of messages that you're getting, maybe it's, deeply discounted gift cards as well. If you're getting those kinds of messages, just know, especially when they're talking about here's free gift cards, a lot of times those things are not real. And again, you don't want to click the links that are coming in on your kind of unexpected messages promising these things. Maybe also want to look at the sender, see what that is. especially if they're coming from a Gmail account or something like that. So if you're starting to see a lot of those, you'll want to mark those emails or text messages as spam or junk as they come in. You can block those senders and do those types of things. And if you're signing up for gift cards and doing this type of stuff online, you also kind of want to, again, keep in mind what type of information they're asking for. You shouldn't have to enter a whole lot of personal information in order to receive gift cards. So just kind of keep that in mind. And again, scammers are always using these types of freebie deals to kind of promise you all kinds of stuff. And what they're really trying to do is get that information from you. They're going to steal your identity and use those accounts and those identifier that you give them. They're going to use that information later for another type of scam or another type of identity theft situation. So you really kind of want to keep in mind what type of information you're giving somebody over whenever they're promising you something for free. And if you are making purchases from gift cards, you want to stick to those reputable retailers. And kind of what I mean by that, again, is kind of those websites that you already use. So you want to go to that individual retailer's site and request those gift cards from them. You don't want to necessarily go through all those third-party people that you might not know a whole lot about them, or they might be fake websites or whatever. So we kind of recommend using those reputable retailers, those people that you're using year-round. Use those stores to make those purchases for those gift cards, so that way you know what you're getting and you know that they're legitimate. And kind of one quick thing with that too, if you're making purchases for gift cards kind of in the stores, you want to stick to those purchases that are probably behind the counter. There are some of those instances where we hear about, some of those cards that are on the shelf where anybody and everybody can walk by them. There are times, especially this time of year, when people can get those numbers and clear those cards as you activate them. So you really want to kind of stick to those purchases for gift cards that are behind the counter whenever you're able to do that. And again, I always put this on there. Somebody's demanding payment by gift card. That's kind of a big red flag of a scam. So that's one of those payments that scammers like. They like gift cards because they know once you give them all those numbers and those account information, that money's basically gone and it's theirs at that point. And it can be a little hard to get that money back. So you want to kind of take precautions from that. So if somebody's demanding that you have to pay with a gift card, it's probably a scam. And we always kind of tell people it would be a little unusual if you went to the grocery store and the clerk told you had to pay with a gift card. So it's kind of that same thing with the website. If they're telling you you have to pay with a gift card, there's something a little fishy with that. And if you're like me, you've probably gotten a good bit of these fake delivery notifications that are out there this time of year. They may be something like this one on the left saying that an order that you haven't ever placed has been canceled. I know I get a good bit of those for a variety of websites, but it's also kind of that time of the year where these messages that are pretending to be the post office and FedEx, UPS, those types of things, they're definitely out of there. I've gotten a couple of these just in the last few days. Sometimes they're, saying something's wrong with the address and you've got to click something to fix that. And they're probably going to ask you for all kinds of information, or they might even ask for money. Kind of the one there in that bigger post is one that I got just a couple of days ago, where they're, asking for you to go in, enter all kinds of information. There's some reason that your package is detained by customs or something like that. So you really kind of want to take a look at this one. That one on the bottom right there, that was just bizarre to me. And I've only seen that little wording on spam messages where they want you to reply with Y and then copy the link and paste it into a browser and do, a lot of extra work that, anytime I've ever actually needed to go to a website, I haven't had to do all those extra processes. So, just kind of take a look at those, think about it. Kind of the basic questions. Was I expecting a package? Did I sign up for notifications? That would be kind of the big one with that too. Again, do the URLs look right? That one that I've got part of the link blocked off, just don't want people to click that. But that website just doesn't look right. It's nothing like what the UPS website links would go to. And so really kind of take a look at those. And again, the big thing, don't reply to those messages, don't click the links, don't call those phone numbers or anything like that. You can just mark them as spam and block them. And you probably want to block the sender too if your phone's giving you those types of options, which usually they will when you get those types of things. So kind of our advice on this kind of stuff, you really just kind of want to take a look at this stuff. If you think the notice that you received is real, you can always reach out to those shipping companies that you purchased it from, or that online retailer that you've used. You probably got some kind of phone number somewhere for them, some kind of website that you've used, especially like Target, Amazon, those types of things. If you're getting those notifications, you've probably got their website already on your phone or whatever, or their app. Go to those apps, go to those verified, trusted websites. You don't want to use those links that are sitting there in those messages. And a lot of times they've already sent you kind of those tracking details and things like that, probably if you've actually purchased something. So you'll want to go through all that information and look it up yourself. Kind of, again, don't use those links and those things that are kind of coming to you unexpectedly. Kind of a other point to keep in mind, if you've already mailed something or paid for it to be mailed, you're not going to be required to pay again. So any of those requests telling you to pay for a package that's already being shipped, that just doesn't sound right. So somebody's already paid for that to be shipped out there, especially if you're expecting it. So, don't send money for a package that you've already paid for, right? Kind of makes sense. And again, kind of watch out if they're asking for all kinds of personal information. That's just kind of stuff that delivery services aren't going to really ask you for. There's no reason why they would need much more than your address. So any of those things that are out there and they're asking for a lot of details, those are typically a scam. And if they've already got a package out, somebody's already put that address on that envelope or that bill. So just kind of keep that in mind. And here's some information from Postal Service. Some of those other delivery services kind of work similar to this type of stuff, but just kind of know tracking for these packages, generally free. You pay that up front, so when you're shipping it off, you pay for all that stuff right then and there. You set it up. So all that's already taken care of. There's no reason for you to be doing that information later on and getting those, links for signing up for some kind of tracking. All that's done kind of when that package is sent out. So any of those things that are asking you to initiate tracking requests, you don't want to click those links. You kind of want to keep an eye out for all that information that's out there. Postal Service has put out a warning in the last couple of days about the amount of text message scams that people are receiving this time of year. If you click that link and if you've downloaded the slides for the presentation, this link should work for you and that'll take you to the Postal Inspection Service where you can get a lot of information about that type of stuff and how they work and just kind of different things to watch out for when it comes to package tracking. Temporary holiday jobs are, of course, something that come up this time of year. They know, scammers know that we're all kind of looking for extra money, and you might be thinking about part-time work, holiday work, something like that, to be able to pay for some of the things that come up during the holidays. A lot of times they might be job postings that are put online, and sometimes they'll use some of those real sites to put these kind of scammy, fishy sites or links on those real job websites. So just kind of keep in mind for that. And kind of one of the big pieces of advice is you can always apply for a job in person, especially if you're going to have to go work in a store or something. Go to those places, or you can go directly to their website and do that. You don't want to follow those links that are coming into you. I say that because I just got one sent to my phone just a little bit ago this morning, promising I could work for 30, 60 minutes a day and make $1,000 a day, which doesn't really make sense. I wish I could easily make $1,000 for working 60 minutes. That would be great. But those things just aren't legitimate. So we've got some little tips for you to kind of keep in mind. You want to be wary of anybody kind of asking for a lot of personal identifying information, especially if it's over the phone or online before you've either had a meeting with them or a job interview or anything like that. Kind of one of the other things to worry about with job scams is if there's no interview and they're just going to give you the job, it's a pretty good sign that it's not legitimate, right? So every job I've received, I've had to go through either 1 or 2 interviews in person or over the computer to be able to get to that point where you get that position. So a lot of those things where they're just saying they're going to give you the job before you've done any kind of meeting with the boss or interview with them, that's kind of one of those big red flags for you to watch out for. Anytime somebody's asking you to pay for a job, that's a big red flag as well. So if somebody's telling you you've got to pay for equipment or some kind of training or some kind of software or something like that, that's going to be one of those things to watch out for as well. And if you're thinking about last minute travel plans, we've got some things kind of to keep in mind too that will help you out and avoid these kinds of scams. Kind of the big thing, you want to be cautious of email offers, especially if it's from those unknown companies, companies' names that you don't recognize or anything like that. I know I get a lot of emails from travel companies that I've actually done business with before, but a lot of times, I'm kind of worried about if those are actually legitimate or not. So you kind of want to take a look at that. And you can always, again, go to those websites on your own. You don't necessarily need to click the links to get all that stuff. So you can go to those trusted websites on your own to make sure that it is a legitimate offer or not. And again, kind of the same as we've talked about with some of these other things, you never want to pay fees or taxes for these free vacations. Legitimate companies are doing these types of things. They're not going to ask you to pay for something that's supposed to be free. And again, just kind of know scammers can hijack these real listings. What do we mean by that? Some of these websites where you can, book a place to stay or something like that. Sometimes they take these real properties that are out there and they may just change some details and kind of copy and paste a lot of that stuff that's out there. So if you're seeing some of the same sounding things over and over and over, that could be a pretty big sign that it's a scam. So you just kind of want to know that those things are out there, and kind of know that it is, again, easy for these scammers to kind of hijack these things, or they can create all of these fake accounts and things like that. So you really kind of want to take a look at all of these and maybe be cautious of things that are appearing over and over and over and over and look like they might be copied and pasted. And if you're in the giving mood this holiday season, we've got a little bit of information to watch out for before you're handing over your money to a charity. Kind of the big one is, getting contacted out of the blue a lot of times. I get a lot of phone calls with these types of things this time of year where people are asking for donations. And a lot of times it might sound like somebody you've heard of, somebody that you want to help out, but it's just a little bit different name or something like that. A lot of these groups will kind of do that. Sometimes they're legitimate groups that maybe aren't necessarily the best charities, where they're not giving very much of the donations to who they say they are, but in some cases they can be scams as well. A lot of times they're going to pressure you to kind of donate quickly, and they want to do that so you don't have time to kind of do that background research and figure out if they really are who they're saying they are and those types of things. And again, we've said it with all those social media, with online purchases and that kind of things, but it also applies to charities. So you just kind of want to make sure you're doing your work. So you don't want to assume that just things that you're seeing posted on social media or crowdfunding sites, they're not always legitimate. So you kind of want to do that work to make sure that whoever you're donating to is actually who they say they are, and they're going to actually do good work with that money that you're donating. And kind of the easy step for that is you can do a lot of this work to kind of check out those charities. The big thing is you can search online for the word scam or the word complaint with the name of that charity. So go on to, the search engines, sometimes even just searching through social media with the names of these charities, you'll kind of find different stories of different things that people have said about their experience with them. And there's also resources that you can use to kind of figure out how that money is going to be used once it's donated. So you'll want to kind of look to see those charities that are using a good bit of their donations to actually go to the cause that they say that they're putting that money to. You also kind of want to be cautious about the amount of personal information that any of these charities ask for as well. And if they're a legitimate charity, they're probably not going to ask you for very much information about you. They might want your address and phone number, but maybe an email address, but other than that, they shouldn't be asking for a whole lot. But we really kind of, again, encourage you to do your research before you donate it. And if you've downloaded our slides, again, all these links should work for you. We've also got a good bit of information on our website, and we'll get into that in a second. But before you donate, you can go to the South Carolina Secretary of State's website, and you can see if the charity is registered in our state. They've also got that phone number there, so you can take a look at that. And you can make sure that they're actually registered as a working charity in our state. The list there that you see, the Angel Charities for 2024, the Secretary of State's office has already named those. So what they do is they look at honoring charities that actually put their money towards their cause. So they've selected 10 angels for this year. And you can go to that website and take a look at all of those. I'm not going to get into the individual ones that they've selected, but what they did is they looked at kind of the financial reports that they submit to the Secretary of State office. They also get nominations from the public, and then they come up with that list. And to get on the list, they have to devote at least 80% or more of their total expenditures to the charitable programs that they say that they're giving to. So they're using at least 80% of the money towards the cause that they're supposed to be working to. And of course, you can go to consumer.sc.gov. We got a lot of additional resources and scam prevention tips there, and a lot of other links. And if you've looked at the slides that are available, I've also got one of the pages from our website there that kind of goes into a little bit more details about charity scams and different things you can do to make sure your money is actually going to where you want it to go. And of course, again, we know there are a lot of different types of scams out there, not just during the holidays, but they're kind of, out there year round. Debt collection is one that's reported to our agency a good bit. Imposter scams, job scams. There are a good bit of these that are out there, a lot of these scams. We have entire webinars that we've done dedicated to these topics as well. So those are on our YouTube page, SCDCA TV. But again, we know this list kind of goes on and on and on. So, as we talk about that, we know that we might not be able to kind of tell you about every scam that's out there, but we can give you some red flags to kind of watch out for with any type of scam. So that's what we're going to get into here. And kind of one of the big red flags that we know that's out there are those scammers are pretending to be somebody that you know and somebody that you trust. So that might be the name of a real charity that you deal with or something like that, or a website that uses a company's name that you're familiar with. And again, they're just kind of doing this because they know if you know that name or you recognize that name, you're probably more likely to trust them and believe, whatever their request is, if it's for money or if it's for information. So they want to pretend to be somebody you know, somebody you recognize. And they're also going to say there's a problem, or a lot of times during the holidays, there's a prize. So they're trying to pretend like there's something for free for you, or sometimes they'll do the problem where, you've got to take some kind of quick action, or, maybe something's going to be, not delivered or something like that. So they do a problem or a prize, and they do that to just kind of get you worked up, to get your emotions going, where you're either really excited that something good's going to happen or you're scared that something bad's going to happen. And they do that because they know when our emotions get involved, we're probably not making the most level-headed decisions that we can make. And they also want you to kind of think that you have to act immediately. And again, a lot of that is they don't want you to have time to think, because they know if they're rushing you, you're probably going to make decisions you don't normally make. And also, if you're having to act kind of right away, you don't have time to kind of second guess yourself, and you probably don't have time to ask somebody else what they think about the situation. So they're trying to get you to act right then and there, because they know when you're in a rush, you're not making the best decisions. And again, they want you to pay in some kind of specific way. We mentioned the gift card payments earlier. That's kind of one of the ways that scammers have in the past, and still do ask for those types of payments from folks in order to get whatever it is they're wanting. But they'll say you have to pay with a gift card. They might also demand that you pay with cryptocurrency, or tell you have to go to a cryptocurrency ATM and put money in and send them those codes. So any kind of those unusual payment things like that just don't sound right with how normal business day-to-day interactions go. Just be really cautious of those. Again, gift cards, cryptocurrency, wire transfers, things like that. And again, we like free things that you can do to protect yourself and your personal information. Kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier when we were talking about payment apps, but you want to make sure you're using strong, unique passwords on all of your accounts, especially anything tied to finances or things like that. So you want to use at least 12 characters, but again, longer is stronger. So the more characters you have, the better. Password managers can help you with that. They'll also kind of help you be able to keep track of the passwords, but also making them all unique, and they can make you aware of breaches and things like that. So that might be something you want to consider. Whenever you're setting up your passwords, again, you want to make them at least 12 characters, if not longer. Use upper lowercase letters, throw in some symbols in there, and again, make them all kind of individual from each other. We kind of encourage folks not to make them related to their personal life. Random is going to be kind of the best, but if you're, coming up with some of these words, you don't want them related to your personal life. So like names of your children, pets, things like that. Those are all things that scammers might be able to get the information for and guess your passwords. Again, we encourage everybody to set up multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication. You want to do that pretty much everywhere that it's allowed or that those companies are letting you do that. So email accounts, especially financial accounts, social media accounts would be very helpful to put that on. I know we have a lot of people come to us about hacked social media accounts, things like that. So putting in two-factor authentication will be able to help protect that. Again, it's kind of that step that the FBI and Homeland Security, all the experts tell us that multi-factor authentication is kind of the biggest thing you can do individually to protect your accounts, and that's just going to make it twice as hard to get into your account if somebody has figured out your passwords. And again, monitor your account statements. That might sound obvious, but there are people who don't kind of keep a close eye on that. You want to be able to monitor especially all your financial accounts regularly, make sure that if anything's popping up there that you don't recognize, you can challenge those as quickly as possible, because there are deadlines on like debit cards, credit cards, and when you can challenge those things. So you want to do that right away, as soon as you can. You don't want to wait months down the road and kind of get yourself into a bigger situation where you might not be able to get some of that back if somebody's making those unauthorized purchases or something on your cards. And again, we've got up here set up those alerts. So I know my bank does those where you can set up, any kind of purchase, anytime purchase has been made at all, or you can set dollar amounts. So I know you can go in to set up like online purchases that I get notifications about anytime my card's used on the internet or, on a website or app. I get those notifications right away. You can also set dollar amounts. You can get a variety of those different types of things, usually in the settings on those accounts. So just kind of go through that, kind of figure out what works best for you and your lifestyle, and kind of set up those alerts to kind of fit whatever you're comfortable with. This time of year is also just kind of good to keep in mind, especially if you're traveling. Beware of Wi-Fi hotspots or kind of what's going on with that. Public Wi-Fi isn't always secure, and hackers can kind of figure out what you're doing online while you're connected to those spots sometimes. So you really kind of want to keep that in mind. Might not want to go onto your email, financial accounts, things like that while you're on public Wi-Fi. And you might also kind of want to think about those virtual private networks or some kind of personal mobile hotspot, something like that. A lot of times when I have to travel for work, I used my cell phone to be able to kind of provide that internet access. If I need to get the laptop out and connect to anything, I'll use that cell phone to be able to do that and kind of provide that access instead of using a public Wi-Fi or a Wi-Fi that I'm not too sure about. So again, just kind of keep that in mind and avoid using financial services whenever you're on those services. You'll want to check your credit report regularly. Kind of the practice has been checking it at least once a year. Annualcreditreport.com is the site that we recommend because it is authorized by federal law, and there's Congress has set expectations with their website, what they can, can't do, and how they have to provide those credit reports to you. And again, that's going to come from, they'll pull Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. You'll be able to get all of those by going to annualcreditreport.com. The credit reporting agencies have given us access every week. Federal law mandates once a year that they have to provide those reports, but now they're allowing people to access that every week. You probably don't need to do that often, but anytime you might get a notification about a security breach or anything like that involving your information, you want to go in there, take a look, make sure everything's accurate, make sure all the phone numbers, addresses, any email addresses, anything like that, make sure it's all information you recognize, it actually belongs to you, make sure everything's accurate. And if you're seeing things that don't look right, you can report them to those credit reporting bureaus and start that process of looking at if you've had identity theft happen or not. And if you're finding a situation where you think identity theft is happening, you can set a fraud alert that will last a year. It can be extended beyond that if there are signs of identity theft that are happening. But basically, you'll call one of the major credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, TransUnion. You'll call one of them, and they'll notify the others that there's been something going on and that you want to put this alert in place. And it's basically going to make it so businesses have to take extra steps to verify that it's you if you're trying to open up lines of credit or anything like that. And kind of the tool that I make sure I try to tell people about every time that I'm out talking to people is you want to put a freeze on your credit reports. This is different than putting a freeze on your credit card. So that's not, what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about putting a freeze on your credit reports, and it is free to do. It's free to place it, and it's free to lift it, but you do have to contact each one of the three major bureaus individually. So you'll contact Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. Let them know that you want to put that freeze in place. And basically, it's going to stop companies and other people from accessing information on your credit reports. So they're not going to be able to open new lines of credit. And I tell people this is a great tool because I had a situation where about a year ago, I think, I put a freeze on my credit report, and then I started getting notices that someone was trying to open a credit card in my name. But since I had that freeze in place, it prevented that new line of credit from being created. So I got a message from the credit bureau. They said, there's been this request for credit card. It was denied because you have a freeze. They give you steps that you can take if it really was you. But, the big thing that is important to note here is it does stop kind of those things from happening if they're not something that you're wanting to have happen. So, again, kind of my experience with it is I did have to buy a car about a year ago. So when I wanted to, start applying for those loans and things like that to get that car purchase, I was able to go in. Again, it's free. You go to those websites, you lift that credit freeze, then you're able to put in those applications for loans, things like that. And once you're ready for that freeze to go back in place, you can set it on the website to go back in place. And they even give you an option now to put the thaw in place for just a certain amount of time. So you can set what day you want it to be lifted and what day you want it to be put back in place. And again, that's just going to stop other people from using your credit when you don't want it to be used. And again, I mentioned it at the beginning, but if you think you're the victim of identity theft or a scam, you can report it to our agency. We've got our phone number there, and you can go to consumer.sc.gov. And again, we have an identity theft unit who can kind of walk you through that process, and they'll look at what's happened, what might happen with those different accounts, things like that. And they have a checklist that they can go through with you and make sure you're taking all the steps that you need to do to better protect your information and your money. And of course, we've got free publications that you can download or you can request free of charge from our office. So we have physical copies, especially Ditch the Pitch. We released a new version of it back in August. So that's by far probably our most requested item, and that's our Ditch the Pitch. It's our scam prevention guide. So we just kind of help you with a lot of different scams that are out there and kind of the red flags of each of those. We also have credit report guide that's very popular, where it kind of explains the information you need to look for in credit reports, and also look at your credit scores and how those numbers are determined, things like that. And we've also got our identity theft prevention guide as well that you can download either from our website or request it from our office. And we always encourage you folks to join us on social media. So we've got Facebook, that link is right there. We're on X, YouTube, SCDCA TV. So we encourage folks to go to YouTube if you've missed one of our webinars. Or again, we've got a variety of topics. So some of the things that we discussed in here, we have entire webinars based on those. So you can go to our YouTube channel and go directly to those videos that kind of go a lot more in depth than this presentation did today on some of those individual topics. And we've also got Instagram. You can go to Instagram.com/SC Consumer Affairs. That's a fairly new account, so you can go to that and take a look at our Instagram as well. And I'm going to try to get into some of our questions. So if you give me a second, I'm going to pull that up. Somebody asked kind of how much money South Carolinians lose to fake websites, apps, delivery scams every year. Let me take a look at that, and I will get back to that person. I'll recognize their name, and I've got your contact information, so I'll see what I can find out for you on that and get back in touch with you on that. And that will be very helpful for you. We've also got some of our information on consumer.sc.gov. If you go to that, and then we've got a scam section that will pull out. We've got kind of individual monthly reports on that too. So it does look at kind of what the top type of scam was for that month. A lot of times it just listed as purchase scam, but most of those are kind of online where, it is somebody who's tried to go to a website, probably made a purchase that either wasn't what they wanted or they never got anything altogether. Those are kind of the two big situations that we see with a lot of the purchase scams. So that would be kind of the thing that we want to have folks watch out for with that. We thank you guys for joining us today, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.